So how good can Georgia's 2021 class be? Things might be quiet right now, but I'm expecting the Georgia Bulldogs to once again push for the nation's top recruiting class in 2021. What's going on, guys? Matt DeBerry, dogpost.com, and in today's video, I'm going to be breaking down just that. Where Georgia's class currently stands, what they need to do to finish strong and finish with the nation's top recruiting class, and I think they've got a good shot. So let's jump right in. Let's start with the quarterback. Five-star quarterback Brock Vandagriff. You know all about him by now, especially if you've been watching these videos or if you're on Dog Post. He's one of the top, not only quarterbacks in the country, but top overall prospects in the nation in the 2021 class. 6'3", 200 pounds. Known for his arm, but he is mobile. He's not going to run over you like Tim Tebow. He's not going to run by you like Lamar Jackson. But he's mobile enough to make plays with his feet. If he needs 7 yards on a 3rd and 7, he can get you 8. 4th and 4, he can scramble around and get you 5 yards if he needs to. But it's the rocket arm that has made him one of the top prospects in the country. He's accurate. He's got a strong arm. He's a leader. He's got all those it qualities that you look for in a quarterback. He's a gamer. He's a winner. He's a leader. But again, it goes back to the arm. He has such a live arm. Very accurate. He's been doing this for a long time. He's a coach's kid. He can anticipate throws. He can throw the deep ball. He can put touch on the ball. He just does everything well from a passing standpoint. He's been a guy that Georgia offered early in the process. They've stayed on him for years. Obviously committed to Oklahoma. He was Lincoln Riley's guy. They only offered one quarterback at the time. It wasn't Caleb Williams, who I think could probably, they are going to land here in the future. But you know, their guy in the very beginning was Brock Vandagriff. They offered him, didn't offer anyone else until he committed. He obviously did. I think it was back in the fall, but decided to open things up, want to stay close to home, and then committed to Georgia in late January. And again, one of the top quarterback prospects in the country. Not only is he helping Georgia on the field, or he will help Georgia on the field in the future, but he's helping them right now on the recruiting trail. He's out of Prince Avenue Christian in Athens. When visits start to come back and some of Georgia's top targets are able to get back on campus, Brock's going to be there. He's right down the street. He's going to be in Athens every second he gets to make sure he's bringing in his guys at receiver, offensive line, running back, whatever he needs to do to help bring in an elite class, which I think they're going to do. So Brock Vandagriff, obviously a big-time player, and the key so far to Georgia's class as the five-star quarterback, he's doing everything he can. At running back, Lavassier Carroll, the speedster out of IMG, definitely going to bring some speed to this group, which I think Georgia wants to add at the running back position. But he's not a small guy either, about 6'1", 190 pounds. He's not going to shake and bake you. He's not going to make you miss all over the field. And he's not exactly going to run through you either. He does have really good one-cut straight line speed. He's not the most natural runner. Again, he's not super shifty. So he doesn't necessarily check all the boxes, but he's a middle-of-the-road 4-star with good speed and some size to him as well. Again, he's ranked below a few other guys that Georgia's still competing for at this time, but he's a former Georgia native, former South Carolina commitment, and again, Georgia wanted to add speed, and that's what he's going to bring to the table. A nice, solid pickup who chose Georgia over Florida. That seems to be a trend for the past few years now, guys, picking the Bulldogs over the Gators. But so he's the first guy on board. He's going to bring some speed. Another guy that Georgia wants to add, and I know this for a fact, is Donovan Edwards. I think he's ranked as the number 2 or 3 running back prospect in the country. I think he's the most well-rounded running back in the entire country. I love TreVeyon Henderson, the kid going to Ohio State. I think he has a skill set that no one else can really touch in this class, but Donovan Edwards is a guy who really does check all the boxes. Speed, power, vision, the ability to break tackles, catching out of the backfield. He's such a natural athlete. I think he's a better athlete than Henderson and a few other backs are, but he can do so much for you. You can line him up in the slot. He can make plays in the passing game, or you can just give it to him out of the backfield, out of the eye, or whatever you need to do. But the guy is very dangerous with the football, and he's a guy that Georgia's been targeting and prioritizing for a while now. He took a visit January 18th, and that's where I think Georgia took a lot of momentum in his recruitment. Very quiet kid, doesn't speak a ton about his recruitment. But if it's going to come down to Georgia and Michigan, which I think it is right now, you kind of have to like Georgia's chances in the end. It'd be different if they competed against an Alabama or an Ohio State for a running back, but I mean, when's the last time Michigan produced any quality running backs that have actually made it to the league? It's hard for me to even think right now. So if it's against Georgia and Michigan, I'd have to like Georgia's chances, even though he's a Michigan native. Georgia is RBU, and I think if they want to add another running back in this class, I think they're going to, and I think they should. I do believe Donovan Edwards is their guy. Even some commitments have told me, hey, Donovan's the dude we're trying to get. We're talking to him often. We're in his ear about Georgia. So definitely a guy to watch there. Another running back, LJ Johnson, out of Cy-Fair in Texas, in one of the toughest classifications in the Lone Star State, and he actually absolutely had a monster junior season. He's a big bruiser type of back, and he wants to break through tackles. He wants to run right through you. He's got some decent speed. The film speaks for itself. I mean, he's just running for touchdowns the first 5 minutes. Again, in Texas, not an easy job to do. But yeah, he wants you to bounce off his leg. He wants to stiff arm you to the ground. That's the type of running back he is. Georgia's been targeting him a good bit too. That's another reason why I think they want 2 running backs in this class. These are 2 really good ones still left on the board. But LJ told me a few days ago, you can go back and read the story I wrote on Dog Post, where he said Georgia's after him. He's been in 2 virtual running back meeting rooms with Del McGee in the back. So they're doing everything they can to stay in touch with him. He's a guy who wants to get back to Athens soon. I think he told me he's never been before. So when things open up and he's able to make a visit to Georgia, I expect that to happen soon. Big time running back, and arguably the top running back in the state of Texas. Kamar Wheaton's very good too, but after the season that LJ Johnson's had, he is right up there with him. So they've got 1 running back already, Lavassier Carroll, who's going to bring the speed. They're looking to add 1 more. I think it'll be Donovan Edwards or LJ Johnson. I think Georgia's probably sitting number 2 for LJ Johnson, right behind Texas A&M, but I do think it's neck and neck with Michigan and maybe Notre Dame and a couple others for Donovan Edwards. At wide receiver, Georgia added a ton in the 2020 cycle, so spots are going to be very limited there. It wouldn't surprise me to see Georgia just take 2 wide receivers in this class, maybe 3. One guy to definitely keep an eye on sooner than later is Deion Colsey out of Athens Academy. Long, athletic, 6'4", 190 pounds. Plays private school ball, so he absolutely dominates, not only just running by these poor kids, but just stiff arming them to the ground, just overpowering them when he has the football. So the highlights are there. He's just toying with these kids, but it's definitely going to be different at the college level, especially if he decides to go to Georgia. And things are kind of trending that way right now. Again, a local kid committed to Notre Dame, backed off that commitment. I think location was a big factor for that. And if location is going to go into his decision, again, you have to like Georgia's chances with him being a local kid from Athens. Top Georgia target, one of the top wide receiver prospects in the country. I don't know if he can run a route. I know he can run straight pretty fast, and I know he can catch the ball. He's got really good ball skills, reliable hands, and he's physical too. So there's a lot to like about his game, but there is going to be a learning curve once he gets to that next level. A couple other guys to keep an eye on at receiver. 2 guys who would actually complement Deion Colsey really well. Mario Williams out of Plant City in Florida. Georgia had a lot of momentum in his recruitment the weekend of January 18th. After his visit, I was told the Georgia staff rolled out the red carpet for him. Explosive playmaker, a little bit on the small side, but he's got the speed, game-changing acceleration. Guy who can hit a home run, so to speak. Every time he touches the ball, he can take it for a score. He is a big-time player and a guy that I think Georgia really wants in this class. Another guy very similar to him, Chris Hilton out of Zachary High School in Louisiana. Little on the smaller side, but explosive, fast, game-changing speed. Those 2 were very similar. I think Georgia is going to get one of those 2. I don't think Georgia necessarily leads for either one right now. I think they're behind Oklahoma for Mario Williams. Obviously, LSU and a couple schools in Texas are coming hard at Chris Hilton. But if anyone can do it, Cortez Hankton, Georgia's receivers coach, does a great job in Louisiana. And being the wide receiver coach himself, I think he's going to put some big-time pressure on Chris Hilton. So definitely keep an eye on him. It wouldn't surprise me at all if Georgia was able to land him, one of the top, explosive wide receivers in the entire country out of Louisiana. So there's your wide receiver update. At tight end, Georgia just took 1 last year, obviously 5-star Darnell Washington. And it looks like they're going to go out west for a couple kids. Brock Bowers, number 3 tight end in the entire country. 6'4", 230 pounds, big-time weapon in the pass game. out of Napa, California. I think Georgia probably leads for him right now. He took a visit to Athens that weekend of January 18th for the junior day, and Georgia's had some momentum in his recruitment ever since. I think he would love to come play in the SEC down south, major college football. I think that really appeals to him. And I think that Georgia's offense sets up well for him. I think he can help not only in the pass game, but in the run as well. So Brock Bowers, definitely a name to know. Another guy out west, another kid from Nevada actually, Maliki Matavo. And he's a big guy. He's about 6'6", 240. So bigger than a guy like Brock Bowers. So we'll see how much he can help in the passing game. But I think he's going to be a mauler at tight end in the run game. And who knows, they'll flex him out. He's got some athleticism to him. He's a playmaker, so we'll see. But Todd Hartley has really put Georgia in an excellent position for both of those kids. Brock Bowers out of Napa, California, and then Maliki Matavo, I believe, out of Henderson in that little town there outside of Las Vegas. So two West Coast kids definitely need to know. Georgia's in a really good spot for both. Moving on to the offensive line. If you're on Dog Post, you know all about this group. It's so deep in Georgia. They've got one commit already. Micah Morris, big 6'4", 300-plus pounder. I think he'll play guard at the next level. He's out of Camden County, committed to the Bulldogs last month. One of the top 100 kids in the country, in my eyes. One of the top overall prospects in the state of Georgia. And there's still some meat left on that bone on the offensive line in Georgia. Marius Mims out of Bleckley County. First time I saw the kid last February of 2019, it was almost a jaw-dropping thing. I see big-time prospects all the time. But he's a first guy off the bus type. He passes the girlfriend test, the grandma test. Just looking at him, you're like, okay, this kid is a big deal. I can see why he's a 5-star. And then he puts the pads on. You see how balanced he is, how flexible he is, how strong he is, and how well he moves. For a guy almost 6'8", I mean, he looks like an NBA power forward already. He's about 6'7", probably 6'7.5", 315 pounds. And it seems like he's got the frame to even put on more weight, but I'm not sure that's exactly what they want him to do. He's still flexible and moves well enough at 315 pounds where I don't think you really want to put a ton more weight on him, but he's a 5-star for a reason. He looks the part, he plays like the part, and he's on another level, in my opinion, from all the other prospects in this region. So I think Alabama probably has the most momentum with him right now. He's been to Georgia countless times. I still think at the end of the day that Georgia will land his signature, but I do think Alabama's right there with him. He says all the time, Alabama was the school that I grew up watching. I love Alabama. But at the end of the day, I think he's going to be really tough for him to say no to Kirby Smart and Matt Luke. So we'll see how things go there. He's got to make his, or he plans to make his commitment in October, around his birthday, I think late October. Another guy to know, Terrence Ferguson, 6'4", 300-pounder out of Peach County. Another guy that Georgia has recruited for a long, long time now. Just does his job consistently. Pass protection, against the run. He doesn't get beat. I mean, he's been a big prospect for a while now, and for good reason. He's got the size, got the strength, got the fundamentals and the technique down. I mean, he's very far. He's advanced at that point, and he's tough. I mean, you come from a Peach County program, you're going to have some toughness to you. Obviously, the Georgia staff loves that, and I think Georgia's the team to beat for him as well. Another kid, Dylan Fairchild, up here at West Forsyth, state champion wrestler, 6'4", 300 pounds. Just an absolute mauler, really good athlete. And again, he brings that toughness and that physicality to the offensive line that I think Matt Luke absolutely loves in his linemen. So definitely a guy to keep an eye on there. So Micah Morris, Marius Mims, Terrence Ferguson, Dylan Fairchild, those are the 4 in-state offensive linemen that I think you need to have your eye on. Moving over to the defensive line, Georgia's got a really good start there. Obviously, Jonathan Jefferson, 4-star commitment, around 6'4", 270 pounds, could play that edge spot. I think he'll move inside and play some defensive tackle in Athens. Same with Marlon Dean out of Elbert County. I think he's a big defensive end right now, but as he develops, transforms his body in the weight room, he'll slide inside and play in that defensive tackle spot. Elijah Judy from Pennsylvania, committed last month. He'll bring, I think he will stay at that edge spot with his hand on the ground, kind of a hybrid outside linebacker, defensive end type. But he'll be getting after the passer. That's what Georgia wants out of him. That's what they need in this class, and that's what they got out of Elijah Judy. So they've got their edge rusher. They've got 2 defensive tackles. And again, there's plenty of top guys left on the board. I spoke with Miami Palmetto head coach yesterday, talk about Leonard Taylor, and he said, the Georgia staff was down there in January as often as they could in the evaluation period to see him. And I think Georgia is in this more than people think. It took me a while to come to the realization that Georgia actually might land this kid. I thought he would stay in state, but he's a 5-star defensive tackle. There's not a ton of them out there. Actually, this 21 class is pretty deep there, and I think Georgia's going to take full advantage of that. So Leonard Taylor, definitely a guy to keep an eye on out of Florida. Mason Smith, 5-star out of Louisiana. Kind of like Amarius Mims, I think Georgia has the momentum here, like Alabama does with Amarius Mims. But at the end of the day, I think it's going to be tough for him to leave Louisiana like Amarius Mims leaving Georgia. So Georgia might have some momentum with Mason Smith now, 5-star defensive tackle. But at the end of the day, I do think it's going to be really hard for him to turn down Coach O and say no to playing at home at LSU. But right now, Georgia's in a really good spot, and he's a guy that they want pretty bad. Lee Hunter, big-time defensive tackle from Alabama. He's committed to Auburn right now, but he's made he's made it very clear that he's still open to schools. He's going to take his visits, I think, once the whole coronavirus stops and kids are allowed to get back out there. Definitely a guy I think Georgia's interested in, and I think he's interested in Georgia as well. So definitely a guy to keep an eye on there. Moving on to the outside. Corey Foreman, obviously decommit from Clemson, #1 player in the entire country. I think Georgia's on his mind. I think he likes Georgia, but at the end of the day, he's supposed to be a package deal with Mason Smith. I see those two ending up elsewhere before I see them both at Georgia. And again, I do think distance is a little bit of a factor for Corey Freeman. So not sure I see him ending up in Athens this second. Could be wrong. We'll see if Kirby can make some things happen around signing day. But right now, I don't see it happen. Moving to outside linebacker, Dallas Turner, big-time outside linebacker. Lorenzo Carter type, maybe a little thinner than he was coming out of high school, but that long, rangy outside linebacker type. But he's bigger than Leonard Floyd, bigger than that Adam Anderson type. But one of the top prospects, outside linebacker, rush types that in the country. I think Alabama might have a slight lead over Georgia right now, but this is going to be one of the many Georgia-Alabama battles that you're going to see leading up to signing day. Georgia's right there in the mix, though, but they're going to have to fight off the tide for one of the nation's best. Smile Mondon, a guy you all know I love this kid. Saw him in person right before the coronavirus and spoke with him. Georgia's in the mix. He's a great-looking prospect outside of pads, but you turn the film on and he just does everything right. He makes plays. He runs really well for 6'3", 215 plus pounds. He's all muscle. He's physical. Plays all over the place for Paulding County, but he'll be, I think he's a solid sideline to sideline middle linebacker type in Georgia's scheme. But he could play all over the place at linebacker no matter where they line him up. He's got that versatility to him. 5-star kid. I think this is Georgia's in a really good spot. He's pretty quiet about this stuff. A lot of teams still in the mix, but I do think that Georgia's sitting in a really good spot. A guy that they are a little behind in my eyes right now is Barrett Carter out of North Gwinnett. I think Clemson leads for him. Another fast, instinctual middle linebacker, sideline to sideline type, knows how to tackle, knows how to run. Big Georgia target, but I do think Clemson leads for him right now. A guy that I think Georgia is trending for is Chaz Chambliss. Your prototypical old school middle linebacker in my eyes. Thick, just muscular middle linebacker type. Not necessarily your sideline to sideline guy, but a middle linebacker who could fill those gaps in the middle of the line and kind of close those running lanes in the middle. I think he's listed as an outside linebacker, and he could play there as well. But to me, he's your old school middle linebacker, big bruiser in the middle. I know, in today's college football defenses, you want faster guys in the middle. So I do think he could start out at outside linebacker, but in certain situations, short yardage downs, I'd put Chaz Chambliss right in the middle and try to get him to close those gaps in the middle of the field. But if there's anyone that I have my eye on soon that could commit to Georgia, Chaz Chambliss is one of those guys. Quentin Somerville out of Saguaro in Arizona, teammate to Keely Ringo. He says that Georgia's still talking to him on a weekly basis. Outside linebacker is the position he's being recruited to play. Georgia had some momentum, I think, when he took his visit that first week of February. So still a guy to keep an eye on. I don't think Georgia's necessarily trending with him right now, but still a name to know. And Xavier Sorey, small town out of Graceville, Florida. Kirby went to go see him play basketball during the evaluation period in January. I've been told that he is one of the guys on top of Kirby Smart's board, just a big-time defender, linebacker, safety, Swiss Army knife type of guy that Kirby absolutely loves. Again, I think Alabama is the leader right now, and Kirby's going to have to beat out Nick Saban and Alabama for again, if he wants to land one of these top 100 kids in the country. He can do it. We've seen him do it before, but he does have a little uphill battle there. Moving to the secondary defensive backs, I think Georgia's going to land another elite class there. They've got one safety committed, David Daniel out of Woodstock, 6'2", I think 200-something pounds. He can do a lot for you back there. But the big prize is James Williams down in the Miami area, South Florida. They don't build 6'5", 200-pound safeties anymore who can run and hit and do a little bit of everything. He's in his own world when you talk about safeties in this across the country in the 2021 class. He's been trending towards Georgia for a while now. Doesn't talk much about his recruitment, but I think Georgia's in a really, really good spot. And I think if he had to make a decision today, it would be Georgia. And again, he's probably a top 5 kid in the entire country. You can't teach his size. And so not only does he have that, but he's got the athleticism, he's got the skill set, can tackle, can cover, and again, he can be really intimidating back there. You see it, you're not going to want to throw over the middle when you got a guy like James Williams back there roaming the field looking to pop someone or make a play on the ball. So he is an outstanding prospect and a guy that I think Georgia leads for right now. At cornerback, you've got Tony Grimes, another just freak of a prospect. Kid lives in the weight room, but he's still athletic and nimble enough to, cover guys. He's got the footwork, he's got the fundamentals down and all that, but you're not running through that dude. I mean, he's all muscle, but he does have some speed to his game, just natural athletic ability. And again, he's a natural cover guy. He knows what he's doing back there. #1 ranked cornerback prospect in the country. I'm not saying Georgia leads right now. I probably would have a few weeks ago, but I still think he's fairly open. But if you're Georgia, you have to love where you sit with this kid right now. I think he's really loves Georgia. They rolled out the red carpet for him and Isaiah Johnson, a highly ranked cornerback out of West Virginia. They play on the 7-on-7 team together, so they're close buddies. They took a visit together, and I was told that the Georgia staff absolutely knocked it out of the park with Tony Grimes and his family, so definitely a guy to keep an eye on. Another is Nyland Green, in-state kid out of Newton in Covington. I've been told that he's Georgia's one of their top overall defenders on their board. Long, lanky, athletic, physical, man. I've seen him just really irritate and intimidate other receivers because, he's got his hands on him a little bit and just plays really physical. But even when he doesn't get his hands on the guys, he's long and athletic and fast enough to recover and make a play that way. So there's a lot to like about his game. Again, I was told he had a very, very good visit to Georgia that I believe was the weekend of February 1st when he was in Athens before the dead period. But a lot of schools are still in the mix. I'm hearing Auburn definitely in the mix. I think Clemson is still in the mix there. So there's a few teams, but I know he's very high on Georgia, and I know Georgia is very, very high on him. So that is kind of where things stand right now. I do think that Georgia's going to go defense heavy, no doubt about it. In this class, they're going to bring in a lot of top defenders. But as it relates to where they stand and how good this class could be, I do think that Georgia will push for the nation's #1 recruiting class once again in 2021 if they get their guys. I really appreciate you guys watching this video. And make sure to stay tuned for this next video we've got coming up right now about a guy that I talked about earlier, one of Georgia's newest commits, 4-star defensive end, Elijah Judy. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time.